Millions of years ago, Lucifer tried to orchestrate a rebellion against God and was himself punished with a foul throw out of heaven. He fell right into hell and backslash. Archangel Michael bound him to a large rock using his own sword as the seal. Before Michael exits, Lucifer promises he'll return one day as equal to God. Over the years, Lucifer accumulates. He passes his days holding conferences with different demons to help him come up with strategies to devise ways of revenge, and his followers build a villa surrounding the hole into which he fell as they wait for him to return. The year is now 2022, and art historian Laura is now studying in Italy. She wants to write a thesis on how the great Italian artists did not actually believe in the angels and demons they were representing in their art, but her professor won't approve of the idea since it hurt Italy's traditions. In addition, the man threatens to discuss the thesis in private at his apartment, and Laura runs from the misogynist. 10 minutes later, Laura encounters Father Marconi, who gives her a special pass that will allow her entrance into all the exhibitions at his cathedral, but also the new exhibit of the Shroud of Turin. This shroud carries the blood of Jesus from his crucifixion. The priest takes Laura through the whole place, and after seeing the shroud, Marconi takes her to see their latest acquisition, a gorgeous Michael smashing down Lucifer's statue. The conversation between the two about evil continues for a while. Then Marconi leaves Laura so that she could have some time sketching the statue for her thesis. When drawing, Laura thinks that she can hear someone saying her name, but there's no one in sight, and she puts it down to imagination. Several hours later, the exhibition is closing time. A raven is flying around the building and settles by the entrance as Liz turns into this to join the remaining visitors lined up outside. Rather than obeying the guide though, she takes the forbidden door, which comes into view of a sentry on the CCTV cameras. Liz takes the Hall of Statues and watches Laura from afar, who is painting, when she abruptly ceases as she immediately becomes aware of the fact that Lucifer's head on the statue is moving. Laura becomes fearful once more and looks about her, jumping in her seat as she sees a raven at the window. As Laura becomes distracted by the bird, Liz takes Michael's sword from the statue and exits. At this point in time, a guard comes across. Laura thinks it's her who's wearing the hood, where she is now cut off from the rest. Laura nevertheless proves that she can get inside this place. The guard leaves thinking that it was just a misunderstanding when he tells Laura that they are closing. Laura packs her stuff and sees Michael's hand, yet she can't differentiate, then goes to the front door. Since the door had already locked, she looked for another way out. Returning back to the corridor, she is shocked by Liz, who kills the guard with the sword and takes his head. Laura panics and starts running away, hiding her head in a confessional booth through which she is able to witness Liz using the guard's eyes to turn off the alarms and breaking the glass protecting the shroud with a sword in order to steal the relic. Marconi hears the commotion and rushes to stop her, but Liz simply stabs him. Then Liz's henchmen arrive to safeguard the shroud from falling into the hands of other henchmen. But when they are exiting, Liz sees Laura sitting in the booth and orders her men to take her. As the group exits the room, Marconi uses his dying breath to pray and to beg Michael to use his body in order to stop Lucifer. Michael immediately descends from heaven and takes over the priest's body to run after Liz's group, who are leaving in their car. His angel powers allow him to run quite fast, but the human flesh can't withstand such power, and Michael has to stop to avoid destroying the body. Meanwhile, a group of rich people watches how a prodigy child plays violinized admirably. Following the performance, Dr. Laurent explains this child is a clone of Antonio Vivaldi, one more big name in a long line of those his company has been manufacturing by extracting DNA from their graves. The babies were auctioned off to wealthy parents, and today's offer is a Michelangelo clone. During the auction, Liz appears to let Laurent know they possess the veil. Soon after, the group arrives at Lucifer Villa. Laurent can't wait to see the veil, since now he finally succeeds in cloning Jesus, whereas Laura is imprisoned in a glass cell with Brenda and two more women. One of them won't stop crying and screaming, but Laura cools her down two with some soft words. Laura thinks that they should make friends with each other, but before they can plan anything, a group of nurses comes into the cell to take her vital sign. Meanwhile, Michael returns to the cathedral and meets the other priests watching the security tapes. The men are surprised at the appearance of Marconi as alive, but Michael does not explain that and asks about the protectors of the shroud. The priests reveal Cardinal Vincini had handled safety, but he began to get a little erratic and start talking about demons and secret societies, which everyone wrote off as Alzheimer's. Michael finds it incomprehensible that priests do not believe in what the Bible itself prescribes, and demanded to be informed where Vincini was, and found him now a recluse isolated in an insane asylum. Then Michael takes the surveillance tape, asks about Laura by producing her pass, and makes the priests promise they won't tell anyone that they saw him. After this, Michael borrows a jacket and leaves in Marconi's car, where he takes some medicine he finds in the glove box to deal with the pain caused by his powers. The whole time, a raven follows him without him noticing. Meanwhile, in the sciences lab at the villa, other scientists work hard at getting Jesus' DNA from the shroud. Michael makes it to the asylum and meets Vincini, who is armed and scared. However, as soon as he touches Michael, he can tell he isn't just a priest, and immediately believes him when he says he's an angel. Vincini knows about Liz, and shows Michael the villa they built around the hole to hell, while explaining this asylum was built as a lookout. The scriptures talk about Lucifer returning someday, and for that he needs two ancient beasts who are of both worlds. One is the woman, obviously referring to Liz, and the other is the beast of the ground. For years, Lucifer's followers brought him kids for him to possess, but those human bodies weren't strong enough to contain him. That's why they stole the shroud. They're planning to clone Jesus because he's sees the only one with a body strong enough for Lucifer to take over. Michael is revolted by what he hears and agrees to stop them. So Vincini takes Michael to the bottom of the villa mountain. Michael's presence in the area causes his sword to react, and now Lucifer is able to pull at the chain to finally break free from the seal. In the villa, the women are trying to find a way to break their chains while chatting about personal lives, which reveals Laura has lost her husband and her child. Laurent runs some tests and discovers Laura's 100% compatible, so Liz orders him to hurry up the process. Next, the nurses return to the cell to take the girls, but the women use their chains in an attempt to fight off their attackers. Unfortunately, more nurses appear and quickly overpower them to then take Brenda and Laura to the surgery room. There, the doctors implant eggs fertilized with Jesus' DNA in the girls' uteri, and Liz shows up to introduce herself as an angel of the Lord. She tells Laura that she knows she's the one because she saw her sketches of Lucifer back in the cathedral and they were very inspiring. Meanwhile, Vincini leaves Michael at the entrance of a secret cave that will take him to the villa. Before leaving, Vincini notices the raven that has been following them and shoots it before giving his weapon to Michael, who immediately begins making his way into the cave. Moments later, Laura and Brenda are dressed as brides and brought to a gathering of the Lucifer worshippers, where they are chained to a pillar. Then the beast of the ground calls to pick up the girls and places them inside a huge bird cage that is lowered into the well, the one that protects the hole to hell. Suddenly, a few demons manifest around the cage and hold the girls down while Lucifer transforms his body into only his essence so he can go into Brenda through her mouth. For some time, Brenda struggles with the devil, but at last she couldn't stand it and dies. Then Lucifer leaves her body and enters Laura's instead, who takes possession calmly without incident. Later on, Laura stumbles outside in a daze, and Liz introduces her as the chosen 1-inch, then brings her to a new glass cell with a bed and a vital sign monitor. When Laura asks what is inside her, Liz replies that it is a better Jesus. Back to Michael, he finally finds a door in the cave tunnel and shoots it open to enter the villa. The guards immediately notice him, and when Michael fails to use his weapon, he gets shot in the shoulder. He responds by knocking out the guards with some punches. Then he impersonates another man's uniform and military pass to sneak in undetected. Michael slips into the lab to steal the shroud, then monitors the security cameras to locate Laura's whereabouts. Laurent enters the lab, but Michael pushes him onto the table and insists on asking questions. The only thing Laurent has to say is that he comes from a new beginning. Michael makes his decision. This is but light a flare to blow up the whole lab, setting fire between him and the incoming guards. The fire alarm begins ringing throughout the whole building, and Laura asks the nurse to let her go, but the guy won't allow her out of the cell. Just as Laura is about to shake Michael's head, Michael arrives, and after he knocks out the nurse, Laura clings to him in hope Marconi is still alive, but Michael gets distracted by Lucifer in his head, taunting him about being free. Michael finds out somehow the seal that was broken on him and grew angry and made Laura think he's one of the bad guys. Laura ran scared, but followed as Michael dragged her into a room before she could be found by the guards. Laura retaliated with swiping his gun and pointing it at him, but Michael convinces her he's on her side while he takes care of the bullet wound. Then Laura explains what they did to her, so Michael decides to drag her away with him to protect her. Liz sees them leave and sends her henchmen after them, but she kills one of the guards when he almost shoots Laura because she can't be allowed to come to any hurt Michael, and Laura tries to escape through the cave tunnel, but the baby is growing too fast and Laura begins to feel unwell. Their slowness gives time for the beast to catch up to them, and it begins fighting Michael, who at first offers good combat, but soon his human body begins failing again and the beast defeats him. Liz arrives with the henchman and rescues Laura, who threatens to hurt the baby if they harm the priest, but Liz reminds her that the priest is already dead and she only needs to now kill the angel too. As Laura is brought back into the cell and tied onto the bed, Michael is chained in the room with them. Well, he uses his powers to break the chains and he frees himself, but this exhausts him extremely weak. After dragging his body through the dirt, he comes up to the well, opens it, and throws himself inside right before the beast can catch him. Right away, when he gets into hell, Michael is accosted by a demon that he brushes away quickly. He looks at the rock and is astonished to find that his sword is nowhere to be found. More demons appear and with Lucifer's sword imprison Michael as he had imprisoned Lucifer years before. Meanwhile, the baby inside Laura is growing at a supernatural rate. Liz reminds Laura that this baby will replace the one she lost. Laura doesn't want to call them the same. During an ultrasound scan, Laura watches the baby on screen and is shocked to see him crawl out to roar at her, but wakes up at that moment, realizing that was just a dream. She finds Liz sitting next to her, who wants to know if Lucifer talks to her. Since Laura does not respond, Liz begins explaining the history of how Lucifer battled the monster they refer to as God, and when Laura responds with a she doesn't care, Liz smacks Laura across the mouth. Liz vows to free Laura from the pangs of her shackles after she delivers her child, but for now, she will have to show them proper respect. Shortly thereafter, a company of young children runs upon Michael on the rock. It turns out these are the ones who were failed sacrifices and have actually been working together in order to survive hell. Michael promises he can take them home if they manage to find his sword, but the kids aren't sure if they can trust angels since Lucifer had been one too. Unfortunately, the demons interrupt the chat and the kids run away, but a few of them get captured and Michael can only watch with frustration. Back in the cell, Lucifer's essence temporarily leaves Laura's uterus and enters her mind through her ear to make her an offer she can't refuse. If Laura accepts him into her life, Lucifer will help kill the guy that murdered her family and also Liz, who Laura hates. Accepting the deal, Laura lies down on the bed and accepts Lucifer to take over the baby as she dreams of holding the child and bonding with him. Liz watches all this and begins worrying about Laura becoming too strong. Later, when a nurse arrives to perform some tests, Laura uses her new powers to turn off the light and kill the nurse. Then she leaves the room and runs into another nurse whom she starts beating up and kicking until he dies. Suddenly, Laura comes out of Lucifer's dark grasp and is horrified by what she just did, deciding she must kill the baby before it gets worse. This makes Lucifer ask not to do it while calling her mother. Laura ignores Lucifer's voice and runs into a janitorial closet as guards begin chasing her. After locking the door, Laura grabs a bottle of chlorine and struggles against Lucifer's control to drink it. As Laura pukes and begins wiggling in pain, he kicks down the door and screams at Laura for what she did to the baby. When she is about to leave to find a doctor, Laura suddenly uses her powers to close close the door and push Liz to the ground to puke on her face. It turns out Lucifer is controlling her body now, and this is him punishing Liz for her mistakes. Liz wants to have carried the baby, but Lucifer is indifferent to her requests to give her new missions. After birth, no one must know what occurred here, so all must die. He is also scared of the fact that Laura and the baby are becoming attached, thus she must also die after giving birth. Then Laurent arrives, and Lucifer murders him when the latter requests. She is freed of the chlorine. Shortly thereafter, Laura's body is placed in a healing pod. Lucifer's spirit leaves her briefly and possesses a demon in hell to confront, to mock his defeat, which the kids view from the shadows as proof that Michael is a good guy. Once Lucifer leaves, Michael finally understands why God allows this event to happen, and the children come to his rescue. They were not strong enough to pull the demon sword out of the chains, so they set out looking for Michael's sword. They found it in some rubble, but before they can hand it over to Michael, dozens and dozens of demons arrive and make them an offer to be freed along with themselves. For a moment they hesitate, then they recall what they heard, and they handed the sword to Michael, who briefly reverts to the body he once had and kills the demons. Promising the kids that he will return for them soon, Michael returns to Earth in Marconi's body, takes the shroud, and then heads back to the central structure, where he knocks down a guard and takes a firearm, and then goes to check on Laura, only to find Lucifer's voice answering her. Desperate to save her, Michael starts pushing the pod to be taken into another room, which is witnessed by a nurse. Once Michael locks the door, opens the pod, and tries to explain that the baby isn't what Laura thinks, Lucifer pushes him away with a mighty roar. Then Lucifer urges Laura's body to stand above Michael and pronounces that her water has broken before he lets the liquid on the angel, burning his body. Michael runs trying to flee from, but Lucifer pinches him and holds him on Laura's lap as he demands to be adored. When Michael denies, Lucifer thrusts his neck with Laura's fingers, but Michael wouldn't back down and told him the conclusion he came to. God is allowing this to happen because if Lucifer enters Jesus' holy body, then Jesus would keep him under his control and sealed forever. Lucifer became enraged upon hearing this and started acting like a tantrum-throwing child, knocking out Michael in the process. When Liz comes with the guards, Lucifer asks her to kill the baby, but Liz assumes it's Laura talking again and makes the guards take her to the altar. On top of the well to hell, Laura gives birth to the baby, and Liz immediately takes him away. Laura is left alone on the well, and the beast opens the lid to make her fall before joining the others outside. Liz shows their new savior to Lucifer's followers and announces he'll be baptized with blood instead of water. Then the beast goes on to kill every follower, doctor, and guard. Laurent is stunned, but at the same time happy to be spared. However, after he gets to kiss the baby's head, the beast kills him too. Meanwhile, Michael wakes up and crashes up the window with his pistol to leave the room. He steps into the well room and finds Laura hanging on one side, so he lifts her up and both proceed towards their enemy. Liz is also prepared to leave along with the child in a car, but Laura falls on her and hits her before wrenching him away from the child. Liz asks Lucifer not to hurt him, and Michael says the baby is not Lucifer. The devil did not choose Laura, God did, and she bore what would eventually become Lucifer's eternal prison. Laura got in the car and drove off to find Vincini, as Michael stayed to fight because the gates of hell were now open, so the demons would try and escape. Michael rushes to the well and shuts it, where he is discovered by the beast, who throws him aside to start opening up the well again. Before the beast can, however, Michael discovers the explosives Liz had left there to eliminate the evidence and now activates them, blowing up the facility and filling in the hole under all the rubble. Sometime later, Vincini takes Laura and the baby to the cathedral, and they go back bringing the shroud along as Michael goes back to hell to liberate all the kids as promised. Years go by, and Laura stays with Vincini in the asylum to protect the child, who has grown healthy and strong as well. There comes a day when Liz sneaks to the forest to see the family of Vincini and tries to call Lucifer, but when the devil tries to run away, the child just absorbs him back into his body to seal him in.